Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. There's a crack in my patio and a hole that always comes back even when I fill it in with some pea gravel. And on a recent sunny afternoon, we're enjoying the sunshine. We see a little black head poke out with this, forked tongue pointed our direction. I was proud of my wife who played it totally cool and has not made us move. It is snake time in Tennessee, and when the weather warms up, we get far more encounters. And while there are some herpetologists among us, including here in the studio, we go looking for snakes. Most of us are trying not to be startled every time we see something, slither out of the corner of our eye. When you don't really know how to identify a snake, every snake might seem like trouble. And you can be forgiven because even the same type of snake can look very different. But we're going to help you this hour, and we are taking your calls. Have you been seeing snakes this year? Have you ever been bitten by a snake? Call us. Join us on the air, 615-760-2000. For starters, we're going to connect you with about 240,000 people who make up the Tennessee Snake Identification and Education Group. 240,000 people from all over the state and beyond upload photos and videos for the expert moderators to identify. And here's a sampling from the last few days.
Come across the rattlesnake coming across the road. Look at this little baby. He's not rattling yet, though.
So first catch is this guy. He is not happy. Here you go. You got me. Go ahead.
Picking up trash out of the water, and a trash bag moved. Look at this little baby. He tried to bite me, but he's too small. Oh, there's his head. Isn't he adorable? There he is. Yeah, we're gonna relocate. So beautiful.
Some folks like her don't just like snakes. They love snakes, but not all of them did, always. Our first guest is Lindsay Patel, who went from snake scared to a self-proclaimed snake nerd. In fact, wearing a shirt in front of me that says, I like snakes and maybe like 3 people. Lindsay Patel, welcome to This Is Nashville.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Before you became the snake nerd, it sounds like you were pretty terrified of them. Did you have some sort of snake interaction that was very negative growing up, or was it something else?
Not really a negative interaction. It was more my generational, I guess.
Yeah.
Family wanting to, I guess, protect me.
What did that look like?
So scared of all snakes because they're all dangerous. And the older I've gotten, the more I've realized that that's not true. The reason I became a snake expert is about 2 years ago. I saw a rat snake in my yard. Now that I know that's what it was. And it scared me. I have 2 kids. I have animals, a couple of dogs. And I just wanted to make sure that they were going to be safe. So I joined the Tennessee Snake page, and the rest is history. They're such fascinating animals, and you don't realize that until you get a little bit of education on them, I think. We're, like I said, growing up, we're taught to fear them, I feel like, especially in the South. Not sure why that is, but we're trying to change that. That's something that we're trying to change through the Tennessee Snake Group.
Yeah.
But that's basically how I started and just developed a fascination for them and started learning everything I could about them. And now I can ID snakes in the United States, some other countries, And I'm really proud of that.
So you live in Coffee County here in Middle Tennessee, and it sounds like your snake epiphany really started there in your backyard. So what does that backyard look like these days?
Well, I try to attract snakes now to my backyard, and my husband has a fit. But we have a wooded area behind our property.
Yeah.
And we've seen a few snakes throughout the years. Like I said, I feel so much better now knowing which ones are venomous and which ones are harmless, and being able to teach that to other people and trying to save these cool little guys. They have such a bad name and they don't deserve it.
Well, we're taking calls this hour. If you'd like to join the conversation, the number is 615-760-2000 to join the conversation. How did you develop your feelings about snakes? How did your family treat finding a snake out back? Join us on the air. We've got a phone call from Matt in Linville. What do you have to say about snakes?
Okay, can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Well, I was told that the young man who answered the phone. I'm just listening to the radio, and we have a little farmhouse that we're doing a remodel on.
Yeah.
In Linville, out in the farm area, on a farm, and I'll be darned. We had pictures and whatnot being mysteriously knocked off of shelves, and then in the middle of the night, my wife spotted the thing. I was able to he goes from the attic, he or she, they. I got a hold of him the night she spotted him, and I put it is a rat snake. I fairly well ID'd it. Put him outside, and either he or his partner is back, because the next day, like I said, we're doing a remodel. He went into an attic area, that's where I got him, and then saw again coming out in between the floors in a place where we're doing demolition the next day. So I don't know if it's him or his buddy. But we went ahead and gave him a name. Since we didn't know if he was. I'm dating myself, but since we didn't know if he was a boy or a girl, we named him. Started with Rebel and then moved on to Bowie. My wife likes the name Bowie better than Rebel.
All right.
So, that's it. Go ahead.
Well, Bowie in Linville, we appreciate that. And, you're getting nods of approval here in the studio of identifying it as a rat snake. Probably a pretty good guess. But, Lindsay, does this sound common that a snake would be in a house and maybe even come back after being relocated?
If there's a food source there, yes, absolutely. That's basically what snakes are attracted to. They want food and shelter, basically water. So, yes, if they can sense that there is a food source around, they will be right there. You can try and relocate them less than 3/4 of a mile away from your house.
So you're saying don't move them too far?
Don't move them too far.
Why is that?
Basically, they get confused, disoriented, and they're very, they like to stay in their own little habitat. If you move them too far away, like I said, they get confused. They don't know where their food sources are, and they're more likely to not survive. So, but yes, we do find that people have a lot of snakes in their houses. They can get in just like any other animal can, looking for food. Rat snakes are very common because they love mice. That's one of their favorite things. And so, yes, they're found a lot in houses.
All right. We're going to bring in another voice to the conversation here. Lisa Powers is the founding president of the Tennessee Herpetological Society and is also very familiar with and fond of the snakes of Middle Tennessee. Lisa, welcome to This is Nashville.
Thanks, Blake. Pleasure to be here.
Well, tell me about your backyard, because I understand you also are trying to attract snakes, not drive them away.
I do. I've got cover tin and cover boards that I've placed out at the back end of my property that provides moisture and also cover for rodents and such. And then I've also got some rock piles and some brush piles. And up until I started the brush piles, I never found a copperhead in my yard. And I was so excited to find my first copperhead a few years back. And then last year I had 2. And hopefully I'll see them back again this year.
Okay, so you are in Hickman County, but I'm trying to imagine how the neighbors feel about you trying to attract copperheads.
Well, my neighbors are pretty laid back for the most part,
Okay.
and I have a pretty good sized lot that's about 2 acres, and it backs up to a wooded forest.
Okay.
So they will come get me if they find one in their yard, and I'll move whatever back to my side or out to the woods again. But they call me the snake lady or the bug lady, depending on what I'm doing at the time.
But truly, does it win you friends? I mean, are they okay with this, or are they put up with this?
I think they've grown to appreciate it somewhat. The neighbors on one side, I'm not so sure about. I'm sure they think my yard's a jungle. They're
Just
the type,
like you like it.
They're the type that mow like twice a week,
Gotcha.
and the yard's extra short. But
Yeah, I need you to come work on my husband about that. I need
Wait,
some-
because your husband wants to clean up the yard instead of have the rock piles and
Pretty
the
much.
and the falling down shed
so
or
I
something.
can't attract the snakes that I want to.
Well, I guess the answer is if you want the snakes, pile some stuff up, and if you don't, get rid of the piles, and there
exactly.
you go. Okay. Well, there's your first tip of the morning, the day. So I wonder. This came up with our last caller. They were trying to say he, she, they. They weren't sure how to tell gender. How do you tell the difference between a he or she with a snake?
For most snakes, it's not apparent.
Is that right?
And you actually have to handle the snake to find that out. There are a few species where we have male-to-male combat, and the male snakes are generally larger, like in the timber rattlesnake and the cottonmouth and the copperhead. But most snakes, it's just a guess, and you don't know for sure until they either give birth, if they give live birth, or they lay eggs.
Wow. Let's go back to the phones. Becca from Nashville, you're live on the air. What's your snake story?
Hi. My snake story happened about 13 years ago. We live in rural Davidson County, kind of out in the woods, and it was cicada season. And I had gone out my back door and walked into a kind of a walled garden I have, and I heard a cicada. And then I realized I don't hear cicadas in singles. And I looked down, and 3 feet from me was a rattlesnake in my garden. And I thought I was alone. My husband was out of town. And my first thought was, if I go back inside, I don't know where the snake is going. And it was really close to my house and the dogs and my cat. So I did what I thought I should do. I ran inside, grabbed a glass of wine, grabbed a chair, grabbed my phone, came back out, and sat eye to eye with that snake. We love snakes out here, but not rattlesnakes that close to me. And so I called a couple of friends that I knew how to rehome a rattlesnake, but I couldn't reach them. So finally I had to call a friend who could just come take care of it for me. But that snake and I sat eye to eye waiting for about 30 minutes.
Wow.
And I didn't go anywhere, and he didn't go anywhere.
Well, and when you say take care of it, what do you mean?
He had to kill it.
Yeah.
He killed it.
Yeah.
And, I just felt like it was too close to my house and my animals and to us. We usually, we're not in favor of killing snakes, but in this situation, I couldn't reach my friends who could come capture it.
In future, I would suggest using a water hose and spraying cold water onto it. And that discourages them. And they do have a memory, and they do not like bad memories and will tend to avoid that next time around.
Interesting. That's really good information. Thank you.
Yeah. Lisa, for sharing that. And Becca, thank you for sharing your rattlesnake story. I didn't know, once we grabbed the bottle of wine, I wasn't sure where we were going with it. But I love that you spent some time with the rattler. Lindsay, how often do you have people, coming across rattlesnakes in Middle Tennessee?
I don't think it's as often as you would think. Because of the Tennessee snake page, we get that a lot. There's so many snakes. They're everywhere. They're really not. And they don't like humans. They don't want to be around us. They just want to live out in their habitat.
The vast majority of Middle Tennesseans will never, ever see a venomous snake.
Yeah, I don't think that I've ever seen one. And when I've seen pictures of, I think in the last few years, people will there'll be a picture of one in Radnor Lake or at Percy Warner rather. And I just think I can't believe it. Let me ask about herping, where you're this herpetology, study of snakes. Herping is, I guess, going out and looking for snakes. Kind of sounds like birding, but where you're looking down instead of up. What does a herping trip look like, where you're really trying to find snakes?
Well, I'm just getting started with this, so I'm definitely going to defer to Lisa on this because she seems to be the expert, and I'm definitely going with her very soon because she finds all the snakes.
Well, I have, they call themselves minions, younger people that like to do stupid things, like go up and down vertical hills and places where I don't want to go. Yeah. And they actively search and find, and they're actually very good at it. And then I take photos, and then we release everybody back where they were found.
And what are you looking for, kind of like in your backyard where you've intentionally piled up things where a snake might live? Is this flipping rocks and flipping dead trees? I mean, it seems like it would be an active process, not just going out.
It is fairly active. Sometimes it's a more solitary event where you're just out enjoying nature. And like around Radnor Lake, I've seen water snakes climb up on the edge of the banks, and you can just sit and watch them. And they'll interact a little bit with each other, but mostly they're taking in the sunshine and warming up their bodies. But just to sit and observe and watch a snake in the wild is great fun. I've watched racers follow scent trails and chase frogs and such in the wild. And same thing with some other water snakes that you wouldn't normally expect to see a lot of behavior from. But you go out at night and watch them fish in a stream. It's pretty cool.
That's Lisa Powers. We're going to take a short break. A reminder, we are taking your calls this hour. We appreciate them. 615-760-2000 to join our conversation, which is all about snakes. When we come back, we'll guide you through the more than 30 species that we live with here in Tennessee. We'll be right back.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org. Funding for This Is Nashville comes from Burr and Foreman Law Firm, serving clients with transactional, litigation, and regulatory needs. Discovering how each client defines a win and working with them every step of the way to achieve it. Burr.com.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. You gotta hate when you promote a show on social media and when people see the topic like snakes, they say, yeah, I'll pass. But I encourage you to stay with us, even if finding a snake skin on your back porch makes you shudder. The snake scene varies greatly by where you are, so we're going to get the lay of the land from Dr. Brian Miller, professor of biology at MTSU. His specialty is the natural history studies of vertebrates, particularly amphibians and reptiles. Also joining us is Michael Meister, statewide natural resources manager for Tennessee State Parks. To the both of you, welcome to This Is Nashville.
Thanks for having us.
And we'll get to that thing that's in your hands, Michael, and you can only guess. But Brian, first, you sent us a 118-page illustrated photos, documented, their illustrated document that you compiled of the amphibians and reptiles in Middle Tennessee. First, do you mind if we share that with listeners?
No, you're welcome to.
All right. Well, what strikes me is just how different some snakes look that are the very same species. I mean, it did make me feel a little bit better about my inability to identify snakes. I did decide that if I ever have to guess, it's probably a rat snake, right? So how come it isn't just as easy as looking at the pattern or the color of their skin?
It can be. It all depends on the species that you're dealing with, the snake that you happen to find. There are various color patterns that we'll see in snakes. Some will be striped, some will be blotched. And once you get familiar with the snakes, it becomes pretty easy to identify what they are. Most people, like Lisa and Mike, go out and they'd see a snake and they'd have no difficulty identifying it.
Well, Michael, there's really no reason to delay talking about the rat snake that's in your hand. I'm not a huge snake fan, but do you mind if I touch
Absolutely.
it?
So I'll tell you the way that we normally tell guests. You want to take 2 fingers and you just place it on the snake's back gently, and you can feel it's not slimy, it's not greasy, it's actually relatively smooth. And you notice it's a little bit cooler than everything else in the room. Snakes are ectotherms, so they don't produce their own body heat. They get body heat from the sources around them.
Yeah. Well, so the rat snake, I mean, truly, so I was looking at the identification page we talked about with 240,000 members, and I could tell that there were some new people who just joined, and it's like rat snake, rat snake, rat snake, and the people will chime in and say, so am I getting this right, that pretty much it's probably going to be a rat snake?
So a lot of the folks who see snakes, they see them in places that we as humans frequent. So tends to be urban areas, residential areas, and rat snakes are really well adapted to thrive in that urban sprawl that we've created as humans. Yeah. So as Lisa and Lindsay mentioned earlier, their favorite food source is small rodents. Small rodents love humans because we tend to leave things around that they can eat. They're excellent climbers. I would almost call them a semi-arboreal snake. They can climb a lot of vertical surfaces really impressively, and they tend to just function really well in the environments that we've created across Tennessee.
Do they really eat rats?
They do. So rats, mice, squirrels, rodents. Some people actually call them chicken snakes because they do frequent chicken coops as well. They love eating eggs.
Well, I just have a hard time thinking that snake you're holding in your hand, as big as it is, could eat a rat.
So snakes, as many people have probably heard, have the ability to unhinge their jaw, and they can eat prey much larger than the size of their mouth when it's closed. And they don't cut it up with a fork and a knife. They just swallow it whole.
All right. Well, if that guy gets fussy, you're welcome to put it back in his home. We're taking phone calls this hour, and we're getting a lot of them. 615-760-2000 to join the conversation. Matthew from Hendersonville, you've been waiting for a moment. Join us and let us know your snake story.
I would just, again, as your other guests have said, please enjoy snakes. They are not harmful. And my older brother, he got terrified from snakes because of Indiana Jones. Raiders of the Lost Ark, but like that King Cobra part, that freaked him out. But they're good. They're great. And all I have to say is anybody that doesn't like snakes, there's a Simpsons episode that's called Whacking Day.
Okay.
And it's an earlier episode, and they kind of the town of Springfield is a tradition, and they get all the snakes in the center of town and they just whack them. It's kind of like a saint.
Yeah,
Saint
ritual
Patrick.
or something. Yeah.
Anyway, Barry White comes out and he says, "Hey, I love the sexy slither of a lady snake," and like you said, yeah. So just please enjoy all of the snakes.
All right.
Treat them with respect.
Matthew, thank you for sharing that. And yes, it does seem like somebody always, there's a reason that we have bad dreams about snakes, and it's probably from something on TV. So let's go back to really digging in here with the kinds of snakes that are here in Tennessee. So Brian Miller, you basically break our local snake scene down into New World vipers and harmless snakes. The word viper feels so threatening somehow, but let's start there since we were in a cave with Indiana Jones just now. But how many kinds do we have of these vipers?
Of the venomous snakes, in Middle Tennessee, you'll have the cottonmouth, the copperhead, the timber rattlesnake, and then on the Western Highland Rim, you can get the pygmy rattlesnake, which is much smaller.
So Western Highland Rim, is that like Dixon, Hickman counties, or is that farther?
Further.
Okay. Well, so what are their habitats? I mean, where would we find them mostly?
Depending on the species of snake, certainly there are some that you're going to find more often in and around bodies of water, like the various water snakes, the queen snake that we have. Even the garter snake and the ribbon snake are often associated with marshlands. Then the glades are actually a very good habitat for various species of snakes, particularly the small ones that most people will probably never see in their life are very common on the glades.
But the vipers, particularly the venomous, is there somewhere where they would be more likely?
Again, even that would depend on which species. The cottonmouths are typically more lowland species that you're going to find in and around bodies of water. The copperhead you'll find in woodlands. You'll find them on glades. I get them in my yard like Lisa did as well. And the timber rattlesnake you'll find just about anywhere in Middle Tennessee.
So over the years, you've had many people bring you the carcass of a snake that they thought was a copperhead. And it strikes me that in your guide, I think you write that only one of them has turned out to be an actual copperhead. What does that tell you about human interaction with snakes?
That most people respond with fear of a snake, and I don't think they're thinking clearly. Like many of the callers have indicated that it might have taken them a little bit of time to become comfortable with them. But their first reaction is fear. We have that phobia of snakes, and I don't think we think clearly when we're phobic about something.
Yeah. We're taking your calls this hour. If you want to join the conversation, the number's 615-760-2000. We'll go to the phones now. We'll wait for just a moment. Let me ask this. Brian, you found and photographed a copperhead while weeding your garden recently.
Yes.
And it sounds like you almost actually touched it accidentally, but it didn't strike or anything. Why not?
Yeah, I did not touch it, but that's happened to me fairly frequently.
Really?
Most of the venomous snakes are fairly docile, and you really have to step on them or handle them in some way. I think Lisa has talked about this before, perhaps not today, but most snake bites that people get are because they've handled it. There's often alcohol involved with it, and males get bitten much more frequently than
humans.
Yes, male humans get more frequently than.
I mean, I thought that there would be data around about like how many snake bites happen in Tennessee, or even venomous snake bites, and I couldn't find much. And looking back, I mean, obviously this is at the very extreme end, but it's like over the last 40 years. There's like 7 people in Tennessee who've died from a snake bite. And then you start poking around at those stories, and one of them, it was a guy who was like buying a sack of copperheads from somebody in Chattanooga 15 years ago. So you're saying that's more common, that they kind of had it coming, perhaps?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say they had it coming, but it's certainly common that it's people that are interacting with them. Like the woman who had called in and talked about having the time to go get a glass of wine and get her chair and sit down and watch the snake. That's quite common. We get both rattlesnakes and copperheads in our yard, and we just let them be. And
really?
They move. Our kids are grown. And
would you let them be if you had kids in the backyard or a dog or something?
No, but then our situation's a little different. We're surrounded by woods and fields, and so when our kids were young and we'd find a copperhead or a rattlesnake in the yard, I'd just pick it up with snake tongs and then move it to the back 40. And my wife used to ask, well, what prevents it from coming back? And absolutely nothing. If once the chipmunks became established, that's when the rattlesnakes became established.
Well, if you're just joining us, we're looking at the snakes in our grass this hour, and we're taking your calls too, 615-760-2000. We'll go to the phones now. Warren in Nashville, what's on your mind?
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I was just reacting to the woman who was telling us about the rattlesnake that was killed.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of a wonderful poem by Vida Stewart Montgomery, a woman from Texas who as a child experienced the same kind of thing, watched her father kill a rattlesnake. And if you'll permit me, just the last 3 verses is all I want to read.
Okay.
And it goes like this. My father clipped your head off with his gun. My mother pressed me to her, strangely pale. He turned your shining belly to the sun and cut the dozen rattles from your tail. Oh, rattler, it is part of nature's plan that I should grind you underneath my heel. The age-old feud between the snake and man. As Adam felt in Eden, I should feel. And yet, oh rattlesnake, I honor you. You are a partner of the pioneer. You claim your own as you've a right to do. This was your Eden. I intruded here. I found that a very moving poem, and I know I think Lisa may say something about it. At Bell's Bend Park in July, there's going to be a reptile and amphibian cabaret with lots of interesting information, and I would like to hear if she had anything maybe to say about that. And thank you for taking my call.
Hi, Warren. Thanks for calling in. It's going to be a celebration of reptiles and amphibians.
At Bell's Bend.
At Bell's Bend Park from 1 to 2 p.m. on Saturday, July 12th. And you may need to make reservations. I'm not sure how much space they have available there, but there'll be coloring pages. There'll be songs that the kids can learn, poems, and just a fun little way to celebrate snakes.
Well, thanks for that. Warren, of the things I was expecting today, having someone read me poetry about killing a rattlesnake was not one of the things I thought would happen. Thank you for sharing that. It does make me think about just proximity to the snakes in a non-threatening way. Michael Meister, who's here with the Tennessee State Parks Department, I mean, you all have this program. I mean, you're holding this rat snake as we speak, and it's licking your microphone windscreen. I think it's part of your Animal Ambassador program. Is that right?
We do. So we have a captive animal program at Tennessee State Parks. Most of the animals that we have a variety. We have hawks, eagles, owls, snakes, turtles, salamanders, all sorts of things. We use them to interpret and educate the public on the importance of native wildlife in Tennessee. And our goal is, unfortunately, we don't want to keep these animals. We would rather them be in the environment where they exist and where they perform really valuable ecosystem functions. But unfortunately, oftentimes because of human impact, they can no longer survive in the wild on their own. They have to be rehabilitated from an injury, or maybe someone has illegally taken a specimen from the woods and then it gets seized from them by TWRA, Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency. And then, unfortunately, at that point, it can no longer be released again.
Really?
So then we will take them and utilize them as education animals so that we can show the public, look at this incredible animal, look how beautiful it is. Let's talk about what it does in the ecosystem. Let's also remember this snake is here because of something bad that we as humans did, whether we injured it by accident with a vehicle or someone did take it home and attempt to keep it as a pet, which they very much so are not pets as far as when native wildlife is concerned.
What's the story of the gray rat snake you've got?
This one was seized by TWRA. I don't know the exact situation. So you're allowed to have pet snakes in Tennessee, but not native wildlife without special permits. So this person did not have the permits they were supposed to have. They were found with this animal. TWRA removed it from their possession, and then they contacted us and said, hey, we can't release this snake in the wild. It's imprinted. It just thinks, someone will bring it a mouse once a week. It may not know how to hunt anymore. Can you keep it in your captive program so that you can teach the public about it?
I see. It's, as we said earlier in the program, it's even illegal to kill a snake in Tennessee. I think the law is something like unless someone is directly threatened somehow. You don't see a whole lot of fines being dished out for that. I mean, is there enforcement of such laws?
There are. So TWRA is responsible for the enforcement of most of the laws regarding animals and their interactions in the state of Tennessee. obviously, I'm not a law enforcement officer. I'm not going to pretend that I know all the ins and outs of it, but you have to show a lot of proof that that person was or was not in danger. Also, people most of the time don't go around screaming from the rooftops to our law enforcement agencies that they did something illegal. So it can be kind of hard to track things like that down.
Well, I'll tell you, they're posting pictures of it online.
I would also like to add to that you're not allowed to have parts either. So if you find a rattlesnake dead on the road, you can't go and cut the rattle off and keep that.
Is that right?
That's considered contraband, and you can get a high fine for that.
Well, the things I'm learning right here. We're taking your calls this hour, and we've got some folks to get to. But if you'd like to join them in the queue, 615-760-2000. Mike from Nashville, what's on your mind?
Well, I just had a couple of questions. I had heard once that snakes keep growing their entire life, and I wanted to hear your opinions on that.
Well, here in the studio, everyone's pointing at each other like a circular firing squad, but I guess we'll go to the PhD in the room. So, Dr. Brian Miller.
That is true. They will continue to grow throughout their life. Their growth rate does slow down the older and larger that they get, but you can find some very large rat snakes and very large racers that indicate a good age. The same thing with rattlesnakes.
Getting harder and harder to find, though.
Yeah, really, because they just have more likelihood to run into something that might end their life.
Urban sprawl.
Really?
It's just there are so many more options for them to encounter something that they are not naturally evolved to deal with. They don't have a defense against car tires.
Yeah, saw one of those on the road this morning. Mike, were you saying one more thing?
Well, I have a couple of snakes, and I've never really experienced a growth. I've got a rat snake I've rescued out of a toilet, and that was 12 years ago. He was darn close to 6 feet long then, and he's pretty much the same now 12 years later.
Could it be something about captivity?
Anything is possible.
Sure.
I would guess that it might be also the amount of food and the age of the animal.
Yeah. Mike, appreciate... Mike,
he eats a lot.
All right, a well-fed snake at Mike's house here in Nashville. We're going to take another call while we're at it. Steve in Reedyville.
Thanks for having me on. I was just going to let your listeners know this comes from firsthand experience. We live on 25 acres on a farm, and we are regularly all over the property, so we see snakes pretty routinely, and we've learned to identify them properly. And generally speaking, our attitude is always just leave them alone, let them do their thing. They have an important role to play. We did have a problem with some venomous snakes. We have our dogs in our backyard, and one of our dogs, a Pyrenees, had gotten bit by a venomous snake. We didn't notice it at first, but she had a swollen area about the size of your
Uh-oh, Steve, we might have lost you. All right.
Oh, are you there?
Yep, we're here.
Oh, sorry. Anyways, we had a Pyrenees that got bit by a venomous snake. We didn't see the snake, but we just saw the wound, and it swollen to about the size of a softball. Took her to the vet. The vet treated it. She was fine. But the vet also let us know, and it's a country vet, so this isn't, we really believe in this vet. She treats our livestock as well. She said there are, I use the term vaccine, and she even used that term loosely. There are things you can get your animals treated with to where it doesn't completely stop the effects of a venomous bite, but it helps slow it down or minimize those impacts. Now, the sad story is the dog got bit again, 8 or 9 months later. This time we saw the snake. Unfortunately, I had to euthanize the snake. It was a huge timber rattler, almost 6 feet long. Couldn't get my hand around it even. It was just too close to the house. I have grandkids. This was the second time in less than a year. So I was just concerned that relocating it wouldn't do the trick. I hated to take its life because I think, like I said, it was a beautiful thing. But I just couldn't risk it with grandkids around and whatnot. But the main thing I want, even though that was sort of an unhappy ending, the dog got killed that second time. We didn't notice, and this is an important part that your listeners need to hear. we couldn't find a snake bite on her. We saw a nick on her nose, but I thought one of our other dogs had done that to her. So we didn't get her fast treatment like we did before. So she went overnight. We didn't get her treatment till the next day, and she lasted about another 8 hours the next day, and that was it. So to your listeners, fast treatment's the key if you suspect your animal's been bitten by a venomous snake. And then the second thing is, for those of us who do live in more rural areas or come into contact with snakes a lot more often, talk to your vet and see if there's things, see if that vaccine's available, if it's something you can afford or not, and if it's something you think is worthwhile. Because I think it would have helped that dog had we got her faster treatment. But, our vet wouldn't recommend it if she didn't think it was something that really worked.
Steve, thanks for sharing that story, and we're going to be taking more phone calls coming up in our final segment. We need to take one more break, and when we come back, take more of your questions, and we'll try to debunk some of the myths while also talking snake safety. So join us on air, 615-760-2000. We'll be right back.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP, and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Blake Farmer, and this is Nashville. We are passing around snakes here in the studio. You know, even though the sight of a snake strikes fear in many of us so much that the first instinct to many is to kill a snake. But snakes are not the enemy. They just need to be understood. Safety, still a concern, kind of like poison ivy. If you just know how to identify it, you don't have to worry about every leafy thing that you see out in the woods. So we're going to talk about how to navigate an encounter that's safe for both you and, let's be honest, for the snake. Did you have a recent encounter? Tell us about it. Join us on air at 615-760-2000. We're going to actually go straight to the phones because folks are lighting us up. So Cynthia in Nolensville, tell us your snake story.
Hi. First of all, I wanted to thank you for having me on and say that I'm thrilled that you have Lindsay and Lisa there. A couple of years ago, I did join the Tennessee Snake ID and Education group because my dog went out, was sniffing in the leaves, and all of a sudden I heard this rattling noise and a snake struck at her. Scared me to death. But I was able to determine that it was actually a milk snake just being afraid. It was not venomous, and everything turned out okay. So that was great. And the other thing I was going to mention is, according to, I don't know if I should bring this up, but on the National Snakebite Support Group, they actually have said that the rattlesnake shots that some vets give are no longer recommended because they may actually exacerbate if the dog is bitten again by a snake. So just wanted to mention that. But anyway,
Yep.
thanks to your group.
Cynthia in Nolensville, thank you for your call. And yes, after the last call, there was a brief discussion in here, too, about the effectiveness of what some call a vaccine. So ask your vet. That would be what we would recommend here in the studio. Michael, do you want to add something?
One thing that she mentioned about the milk snake, and she said, she's heard and saw something rattling at her dog, I think is a fantastic opportunity to mention that lots of snakes actually attempt to imitate our venomous snakes in Tennessee because they know if they can trick us into thinking they're more dangerous than they are, we're more likely to leave them alone. So a lot of our snakes, rat snakes, milk snakes, king snakes, will actually rattle the end of their tail in dead leaf litter. And it will create a similar rattling noise to a rattlesnake. And to many animals, that will say, I'm a rattlesnake, leave me alone. When in reality, they're just kind of giving their best impression of a rattlesnake, hoping that you'll leave them alone.
Wow. Let me identify the snake experts gathered around me. That's Michael Meister from the Tennessee State Parks Department. Across from me, Lindsay Patel, founding president of the Tennessee Herpetological Society. Oh, excuse me. She's a snake educator. Lisa Powers is the president of the Tennessee Herpetological Society. This is the crew you've got to ask questions. So we're going to go back to the phones. Dave from Tullahoma, what you got?
Yes, this question or statement is for Lindsay and Lisa. I'm a member of the Tennessee Snake ID group. I wanted to give you a chance to give a plug to some of the people that you sponsor on the pages with regards to snake bites and relocations. And I also want you guys to address that snakes are aggressive. And I'll take the answer off here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. All right, so Lindsay Patel.
Snakes are not aggressive. They're
All right.
defensive. That is a very common myth. They're small compared to us. They're going to protect themselves. It's just what they do. Like Michael was saying, I don't know how many calls I get about the snake was rattling their tail. It's a rattlesnake. Come and get it. And I get a picture sent to me, and it's a racer or a rat snake. So, yes, they have plenty of tactics that they try to use to make them appear more scary than they are. They're not aggressive. They're defensive. Like I said, they're going to protect themselves, and they'll bite you if you get close. But, I mean, that's common. That's their common animal behavior.
Yeah. We're taking your calls this hour, and we're going to go straight back to it. Tyler from Donaldson, your snake story.
Hey, you hear me?
We can.
Great. So, yeah, I'm by Percy Priest Lake, and we have heard and seen that there's a lot of, water moccasins or cottonmouths. Are those the same thing? That's anyway kind of my understanding.
Well, let me hold up, Tyler, just because we are trying to spread facts here. Michael, would you step in, just the water moccasin?
So, yeah, me and Lisa and Lindsay were all sitting across the table smiling at each other. So a lot of snakes, when they're in the water, are mistaken for cottonmouth or water moccasin. Those can be used interchangeably for common names. But cottonmouths and water moccasins actually don't exist east of Nashville. They have a pretty hard limit on their habitat, and they're not found there. There are no viable populations.
You're saying even in Percy Priest Lake, you wouldn't find
You're
them?
likely seeing what we would have a northern or a midland water snake that have very similar patterns, but are not venomous and are not dangerous to humans.
Okay. Tyler, sorry to cut you off. Go on.
Yeah, so we had an interaction. We were out kayaking, came up to an island, and a water snake came from around the bend. I guess we had disturbed its nest, and the snake chased after us and actually went up to the bank. My friend was standing on the side and picked up a bunch of pebbles and threw it at it and was able to get it to go away. But I'd never seen anything like that. Was curious about seeing an aggressive snake, what that might have been, or if you've heard of other aggressive snakes in the water.
Snakes don't have the best vision or sight, particularly snakes that hunt at night. So when you see a snake coming in your direction, they're usually following a known trail or path where they know that they can find cover and escape. I have been out when we had a racer and let the racer go, and it headed straight for my friend, and all he did was move one leg aside, and the snake went right between his legs, right out to where he knew where he wanted to go. So people assume that because the snake's going in the same direction you are, that the snake's chasing you, and that's probably the last thing on the snake's mind. They want no encounter with a large mammal that's 100 times bigger than they are.
Lisa, I appreciate that answer. And Tyler, thanks for your call. We're
Can
going
I add something about that?
Yes.
The lake. So snakes, if they smell fish, they're going to come to the boat. Also, they get curious. I mean, they're just like any other animals. They see you out on the lake. They could get tired, and they're going to climb up in the boat with you. It's not that they're trying to get you. It's that they're just curious, or they smell fish.
Yeah. Lindsay, as we wrap up here, any reflection on what we've heard so many calls. In fact, we have some we can't get to, and my apologies for that. I don't want to leave you waiting. But what we've heard from listeners, does that give you an idea of the reputation snakes have in Middle Tennessee?
Yes. I'm actually proud of several of the callers that we've had. I love that the attitude about snakes are starting to change, and we're able to get the information out there about relocation about how it is illegal to kill a snake unless you feel threatened, because they're so beneficial to us, our environment, our habitat. Without them, we would be infested with disease and our waters will be gross. So
our food crops may as well
also
be destroyed also, and food that's stored in silo grains and such. Without snakes to eat the rodents, they destroy a lot of crops. So there's a lot we depend on for snakes that we don't necessarily see right off the top.
Lisa Powers, Lindsay Patel, Michael Meister, thank you for joining us in the studio, taking so many calls. Thank you for those who joined the conversation and tuning in this hour. This is Nashville is a production of Nashville Public Radio. Today's episode was produced by Mary Mancini. It was directed by Tasha Limley, or maybe Mary Mancini was back there directing too. But our board operator is Liv Lombardi. The masterminds behind our theme music are LaRange and Namir Blade. The conversation doesn't have to end here. We always want to hear from you. Tell us what you'd like to see on the show. You can also find us on Blue Sky and Instagram and X at This Is Nashville. This is Nashville. I'm Blake Farmer. Go in peace.